So look at this enormous crack. It's a huge crack. Crack is whack, so I'm gonna use GCF Crack Filler. It's a 2-part liquid urethane, extremely fast setting. So I'm just gonna stop talking and let you see exactly how it works in action. And the large void is fully cured. The smaller sections are going to take another 15 minutes or so. So it's been a total of 15 minutes and the product has fully cured. However, the method I just showed you is not entirely correct. I made 2 huge mistakes. One is I didn't do any prep work at all, so that might result in a bond issue. And 2, I used the product completely neat, meaning I used a lot of it when I could have used a lot less. On the first issue, the floor was extremely dirty and full of contaminants. I have no idea whether this floor had oils inside of it. I know for a fact it was really dusty. And what that means is the product didn't absorb into the pores as well as it could have. And what's funny is even though I did this incorrectly, my original plan for the video was to go ahead and grab this and completely remove it to show you that improper prep work will result in delamination. But I can't seem to do it, it's just not working, so even though it's not working for me, doesn't mean you should risk it. You need to do the proper prep work. So I'm gonna show you how to properly prep for 4 different cases. Large voids like the one I just showed you, but cheaper and better. Slurry patching for difficult voids, crack filling for medium-sized cracks, and for hairline crack filling. When using the GCF crack filler on larger voids, the first thing you want to do is make sure that that void or crack is sound. You want to make sure there's no loose material inside of there. That's really important because the best way to prep any type of void or crack is by grinding it. And you don't want any of that loose material coming flying back at you. Now the reason grinding is the go-to is because you're basically guaranteeing that any type of contaminant that's in the surface of the concrete is completely removed by removing the top surface of that concrete altogether. Acid etching also works, but then that requires neutralizing the acid. And even then, some certain floors are just way too greasy, and then you gotta ask yourself if that's a gamble you're willing to take with that acid etcher. And basically when you're done grinding, you vacuum everything up, make sure it's clean, and your prep work is done. The next step is filling that void to the brim with mason sand and screeding it flush with the rest of the concrete floor surface. And then all you got to do is fill that sandy void with the GCF Concrete Crack Filler until the sand is completely sopping wet and fully saturated. That's the best case scenario, is adding the crack filler until rejection. Now what the sand does is not only makes you use a lot less of that material you would have otherwise, but it also makes the crack filler a lot stronger. It's the same concept of why they add sand to cement, because if you just mix up cement with water and use it as is, that's going to be pretty brittle. You add the sand in there as a filler and it creates a lot more strength than it would have without it. After about 15 minutes, it's ready for foot traffic, and about after an hour, it's ready for heavy traffic. Forklifts could drive over that no problem. And the reason the GCF is my go-to is not just the set time, but also just how liquid it is. That super liquid viscosity will make it seep way deeper into any cracks or voids than any type of caulk-like crack filler would. The only real downside of that viscosity is vertical voids or any difficult voids on an upper floor that run all the way through the slab. Right? You don't want that liquid crack filler to drip from the top floor down to the bottom floor, making a huge mess. So in that case, what you do is you make a makeshift slurry out of this stuff. This is a crack just like that. It goes all the way through down to the bottom floor, and the prep work is going to be the same exact thing as last time. But this time you mix sand directly into the GCF. The most important thing is that you don't mix up too much slurry, because we know how fast that material sets up. You want to mix up small, manageable batches that you're not going to be stressing about that the entire pail of crack filler is setting up right next to you. And to get the tech specs you see on the data sheets, what you use is mason sand. But that's not the only filler type that's available to you. Like in certain cases, I know a lot of epoxy guys who will take the dust from their concrete grinders and mix that in with the GCF, and that works pretty good for them. It's a pretty strange way of recycling, but it works. Now when it comes to medium-sized cracks, the prep work is similar, but we want to open that crack up entirely with a diamond blade. In this video, I'm using a tuck point blade, which works, but the best type of blade for the job is called a crack chaser. It's made literally for this type of job because of the sharpened convex shaped edge. It'll fit inside of the crack a lot easier, and you'll have to do a lot less passes with the grinder. And again, we repeat the same steps as last time: grinding, vacuuming, filling the void with sand, and flooding it with a crack filler or making your patching paste. But in general, I like the sand flooding method a lot more. If you can do that, that's the one I'd recommend. Because not only does it penetrate a lot more into the concrete, giving you a way stronger patch, but it's also just a lot cleaner. For instance, like it's a lot easier reusing a mixing container lined with a hardened crack filler if it's not all embedded with the sand inside of there. And you also don't break into a sweat trying to mix up that sand into the right consistency and working as fast as you possibly can. And finally, let's get to the hairline cracks, which are basically the simplest way to use the GCF. It's the simplest fix method. Again, you grind the surface and you can grind those hairline cracks open, but it isn't always necessary. But when you've got that all cleaned up, the hairline cracks are the only time you use the GCF crack filler neat. There's really no reason to try to fill it with anything because the amount of material you're going to use on those hairline cracks is so minimal. If you pour it out too much, you could always use the spatula to kind of guide the material further up the crack. And if you ran out of crack to fill altogether, just use the spatula as a squeegee to squeegee it out across the entire floor so that none of that crack filler is pooling. And of course, when all those patches are done and cured, you can go ahead and regrind them flush with the rest of the surface to continue your resurfacing or epoxy project. And for that, you only need to wait about 15 minutes for it to be grindable. So now you know the 4 best ways to use the GCF Concrete Crack Filler. If it doesn't exactly fit what you want, if you want something with a little bit more body or a little bit longer working time, you should go check out our video on the GEP Industrial Epoxy Patching Paste. So you've made it to the end of my video, but now I want to ask you for a quick favor. See, the YouTube algorithm gets tricked into showing my video to a lot more people if a lot of people comment on it. So criticize me, praise me, or just ask a question. As long as you leave a comment, I'm going to appreciate it a lot. Thanks for watching, and stay tuned for the next video.